we will go ahead and get started with our presentation. So take it away, Alex.
All righty. So I hope everyone's having a good end of the work day, more or less. We've got an exciting little presentation we've got going on here. It's about artificial intelligence and how it can be used in your classroom. Because we know there's a lot of things and articles going around about AI, and we just kind of want to help y'all sift through that a bit and see how you can use it in your class for your students and to help yourself out. We got a load of presenters today, all from KVAC, even ChatGPT's presenting, so that's kind of fun. But I guess we're good to get rolling, good to go. All righty. So let's see, get on my slides here.
So our learning intentions and success criteria for today we're learning about the possible applications and uses of artificial intelligence in the classroom. So excited to have you all here. And our success criteria is, I will know I am successful when I can evaluate the application of AI for my content area and grade level.
So if you guys would, just take out your phones and scan this, because we want to get kind of know where you're starting this conversation with us. What do you know about ChatGPT? It's one question, take about 10 seconds. Thank you.
Mary's going to be dropping that link in the chat as well. So if you're on your computer and you can't join from your phone, join it from the Zoom chat. And let's see. All right, and I'm going to move forward, I guess. Kim, are we good to move forward? All righty. All right. So as a disclaimer, I do want to say that artificial intelligence is an evolving field. We just started working with artificial intelligence in November, and then November of last year, and we were able to create images that we'll show here in just a second. And in just a short couple months, you're now able to have a full conversation with AI. Anything you want to add, Jacob?
When we get to the next slide, I will.
Okay. So this information is accurate as of March 2023. It could be completely different come next month, but we're gonna stay on with it. So let's go on.
Now, when we're talking about artificial intelligence, it's coming in a lot of different forms. And just to give you an idea of the evolution, like a year ago, the big talk of the town was AI generated artwork, and then all the copyright issues that came with that, artists worrying about losing their work and things along those lines. Here we have a few examples. We got Dolly, which is actually attached to ChatGPT. They have the same parent company there. And then Lexico, we're going to take a glance at here in a second for the art side of things. And then Stable Diffusion's another example for the generating artwork. And then for text, ChatGPT is what we're going to focus on today, but there are a few other examples out there. Microsoft Bing is going to be incorporating a version of ChatGPT into their search engine. So you can eventually be using that instead of Google probably. And as far as text, there's also been some other ones in the headlines. Replica is an example of a chatbot that people have relationships with. So it's meant for a whole other usage. And then AI generated video would be a whole other genre. But today we're going to focus on art and, well, mostly text. And both of these fields kind of work in a similar way. You can jump to the next real quick. Using art as a visual example here, these are all pieces that I ran through and generated myself. So just as an example, the top left there, you'll see a field of blue flowers outside of a steampunk city. And then simply just changing blue to red, I got those to the right of that. So all these were just beautiful wallpaper style. If you want to do a D&D campaign background, you can get a lot of good artwork there. And if we visit lexica.art, you can see some. Do you want to?
Yeah, I don't care. I'll show it real quick.
We'll try to be really quick because we're going to run on time here soon. But
yeah, I guess everyone can see that.
So it's not just background stuff. It's also subject-based art you can generate. And from this site as well, and we'll post the link in the chat so you can play with it on your own time. But you can sign in with Google if you have a Google account. But you can use the generate at the top to put in your own prompt. And when we're talking about AI generated text or artwork, they kind of work in a similar way. The user, as in you, would enter a prompt or just a chunk of text that has details that gives the AI an idea of what you're looking for. In this situation is looking through the internet, finding images that have been tagged with similar language and words, and uses that to generate pieces of art. And if you click one of those real quick, Alex, right here in the prompt box, you can see what was used to generate this piece of art. And you can actually copy that, paste it in as your own prompt, and every time you generate, you're going to get something different. So down here are just a few things that were generated from that same prompt. So it's a really cool thing. You guys can play with it on your own time and come up with ideas for how you might be able to implement that into your class or clubs or things like that. Now, going back to the slideshow. Taking it a step further, you can train the AI on your face to do stuff like this. So these are some pictures of me and Alex here. I wonder if you can tell who's who in it. So you can get a sketch version or generate it as a 3D model from a video game, or me as the Godfather there. Me romanticized in a field of flowers, or me as Thor up there in the top right hand corner, which is what I use for my my dating profile. So you can do a lot of fun stuff with AI generated art. So in the same sense, ChatGPT is doing the same thing, but with text, and we can do a lot more with text, as you're soon going to see.
All righty. So yeah, this is all facially trained on our face, and so we'll move on to kind of the description of ChatGPT, because that's what we're here to discuss. ChatGPT is just pretty much an AI powered tool that uses natural language. So it's not that it can talk human, it's just seen enough patterns and a bunch of algorithms that it can kind of write back to us like it is a human. So I don't think nothing to be too afraid of. There's no one else typing back to you. It's always a bot. And at this point, I'm going to do a live demo for anybody that's in the Zoom call right now that hasn't seen ChatGPT. So let me just pull up what that looks like for anybody unfamiliar with that. Let's see, I've got it right here. So I already got it open and everything. There's been a lot of issues today, so I'm just happy to have it open.
Does everybody see it for starters?
Yeah, I think everybody sees this screen. And so right now we're on here. I've already logged in. So what you'll normally see is this will be blank. We've fed it so many different prompts, it's full. You can change your chat model. We currently are paying a subscription on it right now. We have access to ChatGPT 4, which is I'll explain later. But right now I've got a prompt typed in down here. And I said, can you create me a 5-question quiz about, from the book, let me erase that, from the book To Kill a Mockingbird. And I just hit enter, and here we go. It just writes it right there almost instantly. It may be a little slower if you don't pay for access, which it's $20 a month. So do with that with what you will, but you can really nice quizzes. Yes, it's free.
Don't let that price tag scare you, because it is open.
Yeah, but it's cool. I mean, you can write 20-question quizzes, whatever you need. So it can be pretty helpful if you're in a hurry for something. So let's move back to the presentation. We'll do more live demonstration later if there's time. So now we're on to our opening activity. So let's see.
Okay, so for our opening activity, one of the things we want to do, I don't know if you guys have seen Slido, but we're going to go into Slido and we're going to talk about what are your hopes, or what are some things that you would like to see happening with, and that's the first question you're going to go to. And it's basically, what are you excited about this artificial intelligence? So you can either hover over the little QR code up there, or you can do the join at slido.com and just put in that number. And it's going to create a word cloud. So I don't know how many of you guys have seen a word cloud. So word clouds are awesome. And put in just 1 or 2 words. Don't type in full sentences. Just put in 1 or 2 words. Something you're excited about. So it looks like efficiency is one of the things that we're looking at. I love that fact. Coding with AI, that's a good one. Unique art, using it for teaching. So we're going to talk about some of the ways that we can use it today in teaching and some of the concerns we also have. So again, I'm excited. Differentiation, that's a good one. So if you're noticing on the screen how it changes, this is what Slido can do for you. It's another thing that's free up to a certain amount. You can always go back and delete them. You can have 4 to 5 running at a time. You can do word clouds, you can do polls, you can do different things with it. So if you have not tried it, again, like I said, it's free, it's great, and it works interactively with PowerPoint and other things. So just some of the things that we know that we're going to be using. So let's go on to the next one, Alex. And this one is, what are you worried about? So again, scan it in, do your Slido real quick, and let's see what we're worried about with this new chat GPT. No, cheating. Jobs, plagiarism. Laziness. Ooh. Alex, did you put robot overlords? Just asking.
Maybe.
Calling you out, bud.
Oops. I watched too much iRobot.
Lack of student effort. That's a good one. A damper on creativity. And a big concern for me was lack of understanding for the students using it. It really is a big concern that I have. And if it could get to the level that I needed for my students. So I love a good word cloud, and I'm glad that everybody is participating, and this is wonderful to see. I think with that ease of use, we also need to think about how we're going to differentiate with our students. So, Alex, I'm going to turn it back over to who's next? Miss Dion.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. I enjoyed the word art, the word cloud. It was really good, so thank you. So let's just think a little bit, then we'll kind of shift. And so for the next few slides, we're just going to talk about what that might look like in the content area. And these will certainly not be all inclusive, but what we have tried to do is compile information that we have from the most current research that tells us about what's happening with AI and what that could look like in the potential for that in the classroom. So as we start thinking about this, our primary focus was to really think about how this could be a teaching tool, a resource that we could use within our classrooms, and how we can embrace this as a way to teach students to use technology both responsibly and ethically. And so as teachers, if we can think about on the front end of this, how do we support our students to ensure that we get that high quality work and that they receive good instruction without diminishing that creativity, but also ensuring that we get good quality effort and work from students. And so we think about how can we use this in a way that we can just to prevent those things like we were talking about, the misuse or plagiarism or cheating. So if Alex, you'll go to the next slide. And again, this is not an exhaustive example, but here is one example that you can use Chat GPT. And you'll see in the top left-hand corner, I put the standards around reading for literature for 9th grade and 10th grade for both analyzing a character and how they would change over the course of the text, or if I was looking for specific word choices or meaning and how that reflects in tone in a narrative piece or a literary piece of writing. And so you'll see in the top on the right, we put in the text from the book Frankenstein. And so that text, then we ask the Chat GPT to lower that Lexile to a 5th grade Lexile level. And you can see what that looks like from this example. So we very quickly were able to have that lower that text. So I may choose just a piece of text because I'm teaching a particular skill. Maybe I'm working on meaning or tone and word choice, or I'm looking at character development. So I'm going to take an excerpt of that text, but you can see quickly that makes it much more accessible for students. And so I think about that particularly for students with disabilities, how they could have access so that there would be grade level, they could still engage in the skill and the conversations, but they would have different text. And of course, you wouldn't want to use that all the time, but when there was opportunity for students to use that, or if there were students that needed that lowered for as part of an accommodation or a modification, then you could use that. But I just wanted to share that one. So I thought that was one way to think about how you could very quickly. The next thing is, these are just some ideas we also included thinking about what that looks like. You can put in a piece of text and it will summarize that text for you. So you could choose the text. As the teacher, you could be the lead or the director of what's happening in that classroom and facilitating that. So you can give it that passage and then use that summarization, especially for students who might need multi-steps or have trouble with, you could chunk the reading passages. So there's lots of different ways that you can do that, but summarizing is one way that we've found. Again, you can adjust that Lexile level. You can have a writing rubric, and then you could use that to help give some feedback to students. So based on that rubric, but then you could also generate writing prompts. And I just made a note here because we think about, one of the big concerns in all of the literature is that plagiarism or using someone else's work. And so if we're generating writing prompts, those can be used within the classroom under that watchful eye of the teacher. That's one of the things that Dr. Anita Archer would always say in the classroom is that watchful eye of the teacher. So if we're generating writing prompts, that's a way we can do that, but then we can follow up with that, monitoring what students are writing in the classroom. So I thought that one was a very good way to use that as well. So those were just a couple of ideas. Those are certainly just touching the surface of how that can impact in those particular areas, but we just wanted to bring attention to those. And then I think I'm going to pass this over, and I think I'm going to let Stephanie talk a little bit about what it looks like for some examples for mathematics.
Absolutely. So in math, one of the big things that we want to talk about is getting our students to make sure that they understand the mathematics and it's on the grade level that it needs to be on. That's a big concern that we have when we're using ChatGPT, because we can bring up one thing and it can actually be too hard or too low. So you're going to have to pay attention to that often. So if you're looking for inspiration though, in this, we're going to look at it and say, maybe I need something different for my direct instruction. This will give me the option if I put in, I put in for ratios, and I just took the verbiage basically from our standards and I pulled it in and I said, okay, I need something for a lesson for ratio and rate. So we put this in. These are some things that came up that it had. It's got some things for direct instruction, for guided practice. It's got a little bit of a conclusion. Again, you're going to have to make that decision on if this is appropriate for your students and the level. One thing is, if you need it to go back, you can change the age of the student basically doing this. So maybe I felt like this was a little bit too hard for my students at the time. So for differentiation, I may have moved it back one grade level, or I may have said for a student who is, instead of a regular 13-year-old, maybe only 10 or 12. So those are some things that you can do if you're, like I said, if you're just looking for inspiration. Again, this is a resource for you, and it's not the know-all be-all. I can't say that enough. You can't just put this in and say, oh, that's the lesson plan I'm going to use. You can take things from it. Again, like I said, it's a resource. So if we're looking at this one, we actually talked about if my ninth grade students aren't getting it, what can I do? Again, it's a good resource because it's there. I can use it to be able to do these things, and it gives me a chance for me to see this. I really love that the first thing it had on here comes out from my own heart. It says concrete examples, right? And so if I'm thinking concrete examples such as algebra tiles, those kind of things for algebraic thinking, and I want that to be breaking down that complex lesson. So if I needed to go farther and say, okay, how can I break down a complex concept of, and I can put that in and it'll give me, it's a way to kind of string it together for you to be able to do those different things. One of the things that I really loved about this next thing that we're going to talk about, Alex, if you don't mind to move it through. This here, math examples, what are some real life examples, right? We have so much trouble tying math into real life often. And so we just put in one and said, what's some real life examples of linear expressions or linear equations? And it came out with all of these. One of the things that I want to say about this is sometimes, if I'm moving back, sometimes they don't understand the concept of symbols. And so maybe we have to put something in there, you know, or I forgot a definition. So giving it that chance to be able to, for the students, if I'm looking at the students, maybe they don't understand the symbol or they don't understand the definition, it gives them the way to basically generate some problems or some activities for them to do. That's a possibility. But there are limitations to it. Occasionally when you generate, again, there's incorrect information, could be bias with the content. So you kind of got to look at some of that thing, those kind of things. You also got to look at that this is a language model and it's not a subject model, right? So it's not really modeled after just mathematics. The other thing is, don't think this is the know all be all, because in mathematics, we all know that the kids need to get their hands on the math. And the other thing is, you know, there's a part to math that has to have human interaction. We have to have that discourse. So we want to make sure our kids have discourse, and this isn't the thing that we're going to. So those are my take on this. So Kim, take it away for social studies.
Thank you, Stephanie. So you could go ahead and go on to the next one there. So, you know, when we start thinking about social studies, there's certain things, especially within our new standards, that we have to do. And some of those things are, you know, we want to, you know, help our students read our sources. That is one of the number one things I get from teachers a lot of times, especially after a training or when I'm contacted by the district. They always ask, how can we help our students, especially our special populations within these sources, because they're pretty tough sometimes. Helping students write about our sources, the same kind of, you know, questions many times. Developing a claim, which is something that's new to a lot of our students, if not all of our students in social studies with these new standards, and then also helping our students recognize good writing in social studies, you know, at all the different levels. So one of the things, because we're each only really focusing on one or two things because it would be impossible. And that is one thing that you guys will have the opportunity in the feedback. If you are interested in targeting in one of the subject areas, Mary has that on our feedback at the end. But for right now in social studies, go ahead and click there, Alex. So one of our sources, and this is actually from a high school benchmark that I recently helped develop. So when we look at this, we of course we have the students sourcing it. That's going to be the information there that's in bold. But when you look at this writing, and especially for 11th grade, and especially again considering that these students, these 11th graders, spent a good chunk of middle school when they're going to really learn what it means to read into a source and to be able to, you know, identify who, where, what, when, and all of that. But most importantly, apply context and cooperation. So those sources are pretty tough for them right now. So looking at the source, this is the way the source, you know, appeared originally. So you guys are looking over that. That's pretty easy for you, but we all know that we have struggling readers. So that being said, I went into ChatGPT with this text. Go ahead and click it. Because I wanted to lower the lexile, because initially I wanted to do that. I just wanted to see what it would do if I lowered the lexile. So on the top is the original. I want you guys to look at the bottom. You see it's shorter in length. It looks more palatable for that student. It's not quite so intimidating. But I want you to compare the two. And so if anybody wants to pop it in the chat or open up your mic and yell it out there, what is something that is missing in, and this is why that we have to operate ChatGPT, not let it operate for us. What is something that I really need to consider in that second text there or source when you compare the two? Give you about 5 more seconds. Thank you so much. Yes, I saw that. I was in there watching. Thank you. Yes, no mention of the terms. Thank you too, also, Rachel. So I need that because for one thing, if we're going to have equal access to the information and to the learning, and that's a requirement across the board for every student, especially when we think about universal design for learning. I've got to make sure my kids have access because those words come from our standards. So if I want to make sure those kids are going to hit that, then what I'm going to do next is I'm going to type in, lower the lexile to 5th grade, but keep the words boomtown, migrating, and patriotic duty, because that's going to give me the opportunity, especially with migration, that's a concept within geography. Boomtown, that's a concept within economics, and patriotic duty, that's a concept within our civic standards. So now looking at it, I got to keep all those words, but again, it put it on a 5th grade lexile so that my students could read it and they're still getting the content, but most importantly, they're getting the vocabulary. I cannot, and you guys will notice the caption at the bottom is that we, and that was in capital letters intentionally, have to monitor ChatGPT because later on, I'm going to talk about when they're failing at especially now talking about it and that kind of thing, or we should say challenge. It's not a failing, it's a challenge, but there is tremendous potential. And this is only one small one that I wanted to talk about, but there is some potential there to support our teachers and supporting our students in the social studies with ChatGPT. And take it away there, Mary.
Thank you, Kim. Looking at science, if you go on to the next slide for me, Alex, this is just a very simplistic example of if you are needing a term like photosynthesis in a simpler term, you could use lexile level, you can say elementary student, to try to help break it to come to a simpler terminology for students. As I went in and I tried looking at lesson plans and those types of things, the thing that concerns me as a science teacher, and those of you that are here as well, is just like the previous example with Kim, vocabulary being lost. And then also we have 3 dimensions in our science standards, and it's hard enough to find content that works and meets all of those criteria. And so whenever I've generated anything within ChatGPT, it's always lacking in getting to the rigor, into the intent of our science standards. So it's something that you can play with and kind of take a look at, but like, the others have said, you have to really monitor it because it's not going to answer all our questions. We're going to need to really look and see what is it getting to the rigor of our standards. So with science, that's always it's a help. It can help us generate some things like for summary and things of that nature, but be just a mindful consumer of it with that. And so take it away, Dion.
Okay, thank you, Mary. So we wanted to think about what it looks like in special education. And I referenced that just a little bit earlier when I was talking about having that lowered lexile level so students can have access. And so 2 big components are really arising in that research. And one is that inclusion. And so that is, considering that we improve accessibility so that our students still are involved in that rich learning experience. And I'll go back to that example with the Frankenstein. We're talking about the use of tone or text or how the character might change over the course of that text. Students that have that lower lexile level can still engage in that discourse in that class. They can still talk about, because we're teaching the skill, not necessarily that particular piece of text. So our students that maybe are significantly below grade level can still read or engage in that. They can also use that. There's so many software pieces that work with that in order to read text for them as well, but it gives them that opportunity to be able to engage in those conversations with their peers. So I think that one is a very important thing. And you'll see that access, it really allows them some access to content. The other thing is you can put in a piece of text and it'll do that summarization. And so if students are having trouble, with, if you need to chunk it by paragraphs, or you need to have that text synthesized into something that a student can use, you can also generate outlines with that. And then there's a way that if you have notes, you can copy and paste those and put them in the ChatGPT, and it will create flashcards for students to use for study notes. And then you can use those also with graphic organizers, right? That'll help them with note-taking strategies and those things that they might need to help them have access and inclusion in that classroom. So those were important things. I think we talked, as I think about that Lexile level and thinking about how we can lower that, I think about particularly for those students who have disabilities, because, for our students in the general ed setting, we would differentiate for them with always in mind to move them toward that grade level text. And so I was just thinking about that. But, as we use that as a scaffold or as a way to differentiate as we move students to, again, always with that in mind, thinking that whether they have a disability or not, we're always thinking about how we can move them as close as we can and as far as we can to that grade level, what we're expecting for that standard. But I do think there is potential. And so there's articles that you'll see in their resources that on the horizon, there's an opportunity for us to be able to make things accessible for our students with the technology. And again, that goes back to that, we can teach kids, we have the opportunity to teach kids to use this technology because it's cutting edge technology, but they can use that ethically and still be a good learning tool. So I'll pass that on now to.
My bad.
All right. Now that you can hear me, it's time to get our feet wet a little bit. So we've gone over a bunch of different subjects and a few prompts that would fit into those categories. So if everybody can take a moment to kind of brainstorm some kind of task or even a prompt that you would want to see run through ChatGPT. And I got a few floating around here that might give you a little inspiration, but just trying to come up with a few, and then later on we'll come back and run a few of them live for you. So just take a second to give it some good thought. And if you don't mind, throw a few of those into the chat, and then we'll have Mary pull one out of a hat for us later. All right, we're seeing them starting to pop in.
Yeah, and
really use your imagination.
You can be as specific as you want with these. I found if you are looking for a specific answer, the closer you are to that, or the more you let ChatGPT know what you're looking for, the happier you'll be with your answer. So we've got some good ones.
Oh, some good ones coming in.
Yeah. So Mary, you have the difficult job of picking one of those out later. So. But
okay.
Create short ACT style questions on grammar. Pretty good. Uses.
And we definitely need to do a few of these.
Yeah, it's looking like we may have some time, so we'll definitely try to run as many as we can. So, but we'll save that for the end. All right. Find an inquiry lesson for light in first grade. Ooh. Okay.
We're going to talk about some of the lesson stuff in a little bit.
Chunking / outline.
As I have said, it is just a resource for your lessons, not creating a lesson.
Oh yeah, and that's actually going to bring us right into our next slide, which, wait, let's see here. I'm too busy clicking on chat. Should ChatGPT take the wheel? So some of the sort of disadvantages that we've seen with ChatGPT and kind of the AI world we're living in as of recently. So first up, inaccuracy. The model that AI is currently using, I think it was trained on 2021 data. So some of the things you see could be old, could be non-existent anymore, just anything. So with inaccuracy, if you're finding that a lot and what you're looking up, you can sometimes feed ChatGPT some of that information and it might be a little less accurate. So there's ways to kind of work with these disadvantages if you're aware of them. And I'll let you touch on over-reliance a bit.
Yeah, because when it comes to new stuff like this, you don't really want it to become a crutch. So if you rely too much on it, and let's think of the title of this slide, should GPT take the wheel? Other than the fact that I thought GPT kind of vaguely rhymed with Jesus, and I thought it'd be a funny joke. I thought of it more like Tesla you can have the car drive you, but you need to keep your hands on the wheel so you don't end up going into a brick wall. So don't make it replace you, if that covers it. You're still the teacher, you're still the one in control. And we touched on that a few times. That's just something we need to drive on home. So
yeah. And so next up.
Okay, so speaking of the lesson planning, you guys could not have done that at a better time, typing that in there. We have to be very careful because the technology that is part of this, the whole language component, but most importantly, as Jacob said earlier, ChatGPT is only going to be as honest and thorough as the internet. And you guys know how many hours, and we have statistics now that show that you're spending 2+ hours every day finding a lesson. Well, if you're doing that, ChatGPT is just going to be pulling stuff from anywhere and everywhere. And we never, ever want that for our standards. Because for one thing, ChatGPT does not have an awareness of the depth of knowledge, nor does it have any concept of what we need within the rigor of our standards. And that is so incredibly important. We've tried lessons a couple of times. And for instance, one lesson that we tried with 5th grade, putting in a 5th grade standard, brought out a lesson that I would only do for 11th graders. So there's no real understanding either of the cognitive level. Even though you're putting in that number, it doesn't have a it's just going to reach out there and pull things in that would not necessarily be appropriate. So just as I said, should GPT take the wheel? No. As Stephanie said, it's a resource to get some ideas. Like for instance, in the chat, I saw someone post in there, and of course, Mary, I'm going to lobby for this one about real life scenarios for the First Amendment. I think that would be great for kids to see, obviously. But that being said, I'm going to pass it over to Dion to talk about plagiarism on the other side of that.
Yeah. So the plagiarism is predominantly the common pitfall that we're finding with ChatGPT, because it will generate a whole text. And so you can type in a topic, and then it will generate a whole writing piece with correct grammar, punctuation. And so we wanted to kind of investigate that, to look a little further into that, to look at, if we as teachers are receiving those kinds of papers, how can we kind of safeguard against that? So one of the things we did was we had it generate a paper, and then we asked it to include citations. And then it included citations. And so we clicked the link for citations, and the citations were actually not linked. And so that would be one way that we could safeguard against that, with accepting or using plagiarized text. And we just don't want to do that, because we don't want to have someone else, kids turning in someone else's work. And especially we don't want to be thinking that their performance is higher than what it is, reflective of the writings that they're turning in. So that was one way. I was thinking that you could type in and So someone says here on there, it has some correct citations. So the other thing was we ask it to look for in-text citations. So right if they cite it inside the text. So there are ways that we can do that. And I know that Jacob and Alex could speak to it as well. But, they're as quickly as the AI is moving, we're having those features through some other softwares that are trying to keep up with making sure that the plagiarism is not happening, right? So you can submit that for plagiarism, but it's lagging a little bit behind. So part of that is just being aware that with that technology, it is available and students are already using, and it's handy for students to use. And it takes, it again takes that their focus back on, there's no effort and creativity. It's someone else's work. So, like somebody put a comment in the chat, but anyway, to think about that, we wanted to just bring awareness to that, because that was something as we moved through, just copying and pasting and trying to work through that. So I would, suggest that if you were interested in kind of working through that, because there's been a lot of learning for us, is to just walk through that, put in some prompts, have it generate text, explore the capabilities of the ChatGPT and the AI, because, just our awareness around what's happening in the technology world and that integration into our education system is so important for us. again, you know, that way, if we know these things are happening, we can spend time in the classroom having students write in class, right? We might do some pre-writing, generate those kinds of things, teaching them with how to do those pieces of writing without them generating them on the text. So those are just some things. I think I see some stuff in the chat, so I'm going to pause right there, Mary, if there's things that we need to share out.
Some good comments in the chat saying instead of having students write papers, have them do projects is one suggestion. And we had another comment saying, I agree with the other case. I think this will necessitate changes in the way we have to teach. And that's the thing of being aware of the technology and what is out there, and how do we make sure, because we want to make sure our students are still able to write and to do these things. Another comment, the future of the world is changing the way we need to teach. And that's exactly right. You know, we have to be aware of what's out there. And that's what a lot of this session is about, is making sure that we're aware of capabilities, realizing it is a tool as well, that it's going to have things that are lacking, just like what was been mentioned by different ones, like with Stephanie and Kim. It's a tool, it's a resource. And also us helping to educate our students on that as well, of how to use it ethically. And, you know, it has limitations. Now, will that continue to change from day to day, because it's going to keep getting better? But, you know, making sure that we're aware of that as educators. And, you know, it's not going to go away. We know that it's here. And so looking at it and seeing how do we address that as educators.
Awesome. And on that point, if you're taking the initiative, you can shape their perception of it. You can, if they think, you can run it through some software and catch them cheating on their paper. It doesn't matter if it can't keep up. If they have that perception that you have that power, that they might have a little more pause before committing plagiarism in that regard. Jumping on, unless anyone else wants to talk about some of the scary bits of AI.
Yeah,
Can I add one thing just really quickly?
Kim.
20 seconds, and it really will be 20 seconds. Because now, just as the person who made the comment, we have to change how change the way we teach. You know, now especially when you look at the type of writings that our students have to do in writing or in social studies, those skills really should be practiced under our attentive eye anyway. So, you know, if I'm going to have if my students are going to be writing, I want to see it there. I want to be there with them if they struggle, if they have questions. So, you know, I agree. The things that we're going to be sending home are going to look, you know, there's going to be genuine practice, or it's going to be research. I'm not going to mind one bit sending kids home with research now, but if they're going to be writing and using those skills, especially those skills that they're going to need on an assessment, I'm going to make sure they're practicing those with me in the classroom.
Definitely.
I'm going to add one thing to this. Again, this, just like Kim said, this is not a replacement in any means by your good classroom instruction, because good instruction is what's going to get our kids to where they need to be. The other thing, it's not a replacement for your textbook. Yes, it can give you some extra examples. It can do those kind of things. But that personal interaction that you have as a teacher is very key to our kids' learning. So just keep up doing the good stuff.
I agree. Keep it up. And with that, we'll move on to pay or not to pay.
That is the question.
This is Jacob's idea, the Toupee joke. Pretty much what I'm trying to say here is there's two versions of ChatGPT currently out at the moment. One is free that anybody has access to. We've witnessed queues with that. So sometimes you'll be waiting 30 minutes. Sometimes you'll be waiting 5 minutes to get in and use it. ChatGPT 3, I think it's 3.5 is probably what the default is. It's great. It gives you really good information. It's trained on the same model as 4, but 4 you pay for, and 4's, I think it's $20 a month at the moment, and it's it claims it's more creative. And after using it for over a week now, I agree with that. It's definitely a bit more creative with its answers. You'll see. I know we're not huge fans of the lesson plan question, but we have seen it develop significantly different lesson plans between the two bots. So still take those lesson plans with a grain of salt. Use your best judgment if you use it for that, but I wouldn't. But But it's pretty nice. Also, ChatGPT 4, if you do pay for it, you get faster responses, guaranteed access. And I really like 4. I've got a teacher using my account at the moment right now, and he's kind of showing me how he's going to use it with his students for Arduinos and everything. ChatGPT 3 can also write code and do all of that. We've done that. ChatGPT 4 code is just a little better, and we like that. As tech guys, anytime we're messing with code, we like it to be as concise as possible, and 4 does that. Google, what Kathleen said in chat, is starting their trial to Bard. Yeah, that's Google's version of AI, which is going to be on its way out soon. I know Bing, you can mess with Bing's AI at the moment if you have early access to it, and it's all right. It kind of has access to the internet, so it's free as well. So I don't see that ever being a paid service. And with that, I think anybody else want to add anything here? If not, we'll move on to our survey, and I'll let Kim take away there.
Okay, just as we asked you that question at the beginning, now that we've kind of gone through this, we'd like to know basically the impact of our discussion today. What have you learned? And just kind of, it's like our little thermometer, so to speak. And take it away there, Mary. I'm going to look up, since we're going to have a little extra time, you guys, I'm going to compare the two.
Real quick, should I add, since we do have some time left over, after we're done with the feedback form, we will be doing some live demonstrations with some of what you all have dropped in the chat. So I'll let Mary take it away from here, though.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too, Alex, is, we wanted to give you time to be able to get the feedback survey. Once you complete it and click submit, it will send an email to the email address you include in the form. So if you do not get a certificate, please email me at mary.belcher@hazard.kyschools.us. If you do not receive that, also check your junk on that. But the last question on the survey asks about additional support. And this is getting back to what Kim mentioned earlier with, are you looking for something, maybe what was being mentioned, like using it for code, using it maybe particularly with special ed students. Maybe I'm wanting to learn more about using it in math or social studies or science. Any one of those areas that you are interested in seeing more with, because we knew in this 1 hour we couldn't do everything. We tried our best to give samples of a lot of different ideas, but this is going to kind of be maybe start a series, and your feedback will help direct that development. It might be we do, snippets like short video clips, or more virtual sessions like this to where we can ask questions and get input from you all. So if you will take just a second, the link is in the chat, or utilize the QR code on the screen. And we'll give you just a minute to go through and complete that and give us some feedback on what the next steps will be of moving forward with AI. And thank you all so much for being here. I know you're so tired. Bless your hearts for showing up and being here today. But thank you so much for your time. And we'll give just a minute longer to let you all work on that. And we'll pick a couple of the items above for the guys to try out live for you all to utilize with the Chat GPT. And we are doing the free version, right, Alex?
We're going to do the free version. If there's enough time and anybody wants to try the 4, we could give it a shot, but 4's been down all day. So I really don't see us being able to use it. It's been down literally since like 4 a.m. So
that's interesting, because the free one's been working today.
Free ones? Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, it's been running seamless.
We'll call it growing pains for new technology.
Maybe that's it. But I did put a link to the free version login to where people can sign up for their own account. And that would be one thing, is sign up and try it out, look at it and see, play with it. to see how you might could utilize it in your classroom. And like I said, in the feedback, give us some ideas of what you would want to see more of.
One thing I didn't touch on when I should have with 3 and 4, 3, they both have memory capability, so they remember what you say to them. 3 is just a little bit lacking, where 4, I think it's processing, I think it was around like 10,000 words they can process at a time, and they can remember that. So you can feed it articles, you can feed it standards, you can feed it whatever you need, and maybe help it guide anything for you. So that's one of the things I do like about 4 better than 3 is the memory capabilities of it. Because I mean, you can carry on a conversation with it and it remembers what you said 100 entries before. So it's really neat, and I recommend just playing with ChatGPT 3. And if you like it and you really want to just try it out, maybe drop the $20 for 1 month and try it out, because it's pretty cool. And it's cool because let's say you're writing code, and like I can code, but maybe I'm not the world's best coder. It can write code, and then you can get it to explain to you specific parts of the code that you don't understand. So you can use it in like a tutor. It doesn't have to do everything for you. It can teach you too. So I mean, just use it as a tool. Again, I like Jacob's thing. What he says, it's it's like a Tesla. You got to keep your hands on there or something like that. That's not exactly how
Self-driving car.
Yeah, self. I don't know, but yeah. But yeah, we'll
So Alex,
run some stuff up.
Why don't you show how it can be used as a tutor?
Okay, yeah, I can do that. Let me go and
That'd
pull
be
it up
good.
here.
You jump to the next slide real quick.
Oh yeah, so well, I guess we'll just move on to the next slide and we'll show some of that then. So,
Yes, please.
And while he's setting that up, when you're doing prompts, it's not a one and done thing. If, like they say, at first you don't succeed, try and try again. It's called chat for a reason. So you're having a conversation basically with a supercomputer. So you want to reference earlier things from your prompts before, or even the response to what you've asked it. If it gives you 10 items, you can say, can you elaborate more on item 3? Or can you make a list and order it this way? You can do a whole lot with it. And I believe you can even have it create tables of information and stuff for you. So you can do an absurd amount of stuff, honestly, but it's all about how you use it.
See, do we still have that example? I'd like to see that.
No, are you sharing that screen?
No, I'm not sharing it. Yeah, I was trying to. We've got an example of where we used it as a Socratic tutor, but we've run so many prompts through this thing, I think I've lost it.
It's fine, because we've got 6 minutes. So I'd also like to hit some of their prompt ideas and discuss the results to see.
I've got one that, and this, I like this one, and I'm choosing this one because this affects everybody. Write an email to a parent about their child being a great student. So kind of using it as a,
Okay.
like as a to give you a letter that you could utilize to draft a letter for you that you could use to so write an email to a parent about their child being a great student.
Okay, that's great. And you can put this in any tone you want. So if you want to be more specific, but I'm going to run it like you wrote it, but you can write in a pleasant manner, polite manner, or if you want to be rude to the parent, which I can imagine why you'd want to do that, but but yeah,
in a passive aggressive manner.
Perfect. I mean, I'm trying to find anything that sounds specifically robotic in this line of text, because I've used ChatGPT. These guys will do something for me, and I'll write them a thank you email or a thank you text, and I'll tell it to write it, and it sounds just kind of robotic, especially in 3. It kind of.
But as you can see, it's got brackets around the stuff that you would change. So you put the parent's name in there, you'd put the student's name in and then your name at the end. You'd probably want to do that before sending the email, because then it would give you away.
Yes, please. And you can preempt all that information before and whenever you're typing your prompt out. Like I said, the more specific you are, the happier you'll be with the results. I'm still trying to find.
So-
I would just like to say I've never really messaged anyone and said I hope you're in good health and spirits.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, you don't do that? I'm teasing. Okay. Ask a follow-up question. Let's see. What are we thinking?
Say, can you change the introduction, or like the
The first
what Kim
paragraph.
was talking about?
Oh, can you
change the first paragraph?
write the first paragraph? Anything specific or just rewrite it?
I don't know. What were you thinking, Kim, to where you would want it in more common terms on that one?
You want to be more human?
Why don't we say lower the Lexile? You know, Dion,
Okay.
jump in here. Maybe lower the Lexile to 6th grade. 7th
Okay.
grade.
Can you rewrite the email to 6th grade
The
Lexile?
email to a 6th grade Lexile level. Okay. That's spell Lexile, all right?
It'll figure it out.
It will. It's really smart, but all right. Guess it's when the caps it. All right, scroll down. Good news about your child's schoolwork. See, now it doesn't say, it says, I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, which is kind of what we do say every day.
So yeah.
All right.
Okay, so please do everyday examples of the First Amendment
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, that's a good one.
in your
Give
daily life.
examples.
Yeah, give examples of
Give examples of
how
we're
the
not-
First Amendment.
give examples of scenarios or uses of the First Amendment said in your daily life. So you want to change that to
Yeah.
Changing theirs.
in your
No, wait. Give examples of. No, I like how they said it better. Yeah.
okay.
Of scenarios.
Use what they wrote.
Yeah,
Okay, you
I like
got
that
it.
better.
Maybe I should say I don't maybe
Yes, Eric, that is yours.
All right, so here we go. It even put its own names in there. I figured it'd just do
But see what we would do though is we would type our students' names. We would just type them in there real quick.
Yeah, because you can write that however you want. It does a pretty good job at understanding or deciphering what you're trying to say. But yeah, how's that look? Kim? That looking? Any problems there?
As our history expert.
Yeah, our social studies.
Oh, that would be social studies. Yeah, I could. I mean, there's a few that I might tweak a little bit, or I might have a conversation with. But yeah, I'm with you, Eric. But I keep seeing it organize a protest. But I like how like when is it organize a protest, and then another one is write an op-ed. So that'll be really, because I'm going to go ahead and tell you teachers this. I mean, if I did this, I would do this on my for myself. Then because when you think about communicating conclusions and our new standards, some of these would be great prompts that we give to our students. Like for instance, you feel strongly about a controversial topic in your community. I'm actually going to give that to them. So see, I'm going to have a conversation with this to really get it specific, and I'm going to ask us some questions, and then I'm going to use some of these as prompts for my students, especially when you think about deliberation in the classroom, because they want our kids to have civil debates and discourse and that kind of thing. So I would use some of these, and I'm going to shut up because I could talk about this all day.
Well, it does put us at 4:30. So we are at 4:30 at the time of our meeting. And so it is 1 hour, and you all have done the feedback survey for us. So if you all if a couple of you want to hang back and still continue, because we know a lot of you have places to go and things to do. And we so thank you for taking the time to be with us today to explore this new tool.